We are coming to the end of Eastertide. Next week is our last Sunday in Easter season. And we are remembering and celebrating the instructions that the angels or Jesus himself, depending on which gospel you read, gave to the women who found the empty tomb. The instructions were, go and tell. Go and tell what you've seen. And today I have the same instructions. To go and tell. So I'm here to bear witness about what I've seen the past week and a half. And we'll circle back to the scripture at the end. Last Wednesday, 2 Wednesdays ago, April 24th, I got a call from a pastor about what was happening at the University of Texas. He alerted me when horses with mounted officers galloped past his office, and he knew something was amiss. When we arrived, we found a phalanx of law enforcement in riot gear. We found mounted law enforcement riding through campus, not there to respond to any disturbance, but waiting for the protesters to arrive. At a planned walkout that had been promoted, featuring a teach-in, study breaks, pizza party, and an art workshop. The students who walked out were greeted by the militarization of their own campus. I can bear witness that the students did not create the chaos that you've seen on the news, but that the disproportionate response of the administration and the state did. I walked to the lawn and saw arrest after arrest after arrest. And what I saw was a line of nonviolent protesters, linked arms, refusing to move, and surrounded by a much bigger crowd of those that were there to support them or to bear witness or to just see what was going on. And every few minutes, a line of DPS officers would create their own row and walk up to the row of protesters, grab one or two, throw them on the ground, zip tie their hands, and march them off, each one surrounded, to a van to be taken to jail for processing. About 10 minutes later, the scene would repeat. While I was there for a couple of hours, I watched about 15 arrests like that. I couldn't see everything, but I didn't see any hostility on the part of the students. It seemed to be a kind of random selection that the law enforcement were grabbing. After I left to pick up my kiddos, there were more arrests, and I'm not sure what that looked like. But while I was still there, I also watched the mounted troopers ride through campus and blaze through the crowd to push through toward the protesters on horses that I felt very bad for because they were beautiful. They're like the huge Budweiser horses, but very intimidating and scary when they're pushing through a crowd. The police eventually pushed the protesters out to Guadalupe Street and then left. So I was watching from home at this point, or maybe I was here, I don't remember, videos of motorcycle and bike and horse riding police officers march past with our building in the background. So this was right here. After they left, the students went back to the lawn and resumed their peaceful programming. But UT locked the surrounding buildings, and there was a problem with them finding safe places to get to if they needed it, or even a place to get some water or a bathroom. So I got on the phone with some of our church leadership and talked through the possibility of offering our building as a respite site if we were needed in the case of emergency, if the students needed a safe place to come, a bathroom to get into, water, snacks, etc. And they said, of course, let's do it. And I reached out to some folks to make that available. I think it was an easy decision for UBC, and I'm so grateful for the history of this place, because there were not any other campus area churches that were ready to act so quickly, and I am so proud to be your pastor and to know that it's in our blood to provide safe space for anyone who is feeling unsafe or being oppressed. We have lots of experience with this. Every Thursday when we host our unhoused and food insecure neighbors for God's Family Dinner, we're creating that safe space. Every Saturday when we host the Micah 6 drop-in center for youth that are housing insecure, we host safe space in our building. We host safe space for many UT students already as a site where they can pick up reproductive care kits from the Bridge Collective, and many do. You have a history of this, and I won't go through the whole litany, but I was thinking about Open Circle, the LGBTQ safe space that many of you were a part of and led when that was a really brave thing to do, and still is, but especially then. It's in your blood as a congregation to provide safe space, and it's in my blood as a pastor too. My first call was really involved in the issue of providing sanctuary to immigrants and learning more about the sanctuary movement. And the combination of those things, I think, is what helped us to move forward, to open our doors, and to become a safe space in this moment of need. On Thursday, the day after the day I told you about, there was a faculty-led walkout at UT, and there were reports of between 500 and 1,500, I'm not sure what the number was, but really big crowds that second day, led by faculty supporting students in their work and in their free speech. And I joined some of you there. There was no amplification allowed at that event, and there's still no amplification currently allowed on the lawn. So, how do you hear when you're in a crowd of 1,500 people, potentially? Well, the speaker would say a short phrase or sentence, and all those who around him or her or them who could hear would repeat it loudly for the rest of us in the back to hear. It was a really powerful moment of the power of people to amplify even when certain forces don't want them to be heard. And it made me think of some of my New Testament studies. Some people think that this is how amplification took place outside in the New Testament. When we think about the Sermon on the Mount or the Sermon on the Plain, it may have looked a lot like what I saw at that faculty walkout, where Jesus said a few words, a sentence, and then the disciples called it out for everyone else to hear. It was a beautiful call and response about peace and support of students and about ending war. At that point, I had gotten word out to some of the organizers that UBC was open, with snacks and water and bathrooms and quiet space and shelter and safety if we needed it. And so I started recruiting volunteers, and people came in and out of our building all last weekend, storing their signs or their water bottles, or some of you brought snacks for students on Sunday that were ready for them the next week. There was a lost and found that popped up in our fellowship hall for all of the items that were left on the lawn whenever folks were arrested. People knew they could bring them here and we'd keep them safe until they could get here to look for their things. Last Monday, things changed pretty drastically as students set up a small encampment. I went back to the lawn and I watched again and bore witness as law enforcement came again in force and dragged people out of the small circle one by one, tackled them, brutalized them, and took them away. I have personally seen multiple students with major injuries because they sat down and refused to move. About 4 o'clock that afternoon, after the final push of mass arrests, Students attempted to stand in front of a police bus full of their friends, and police responded with tear gas and pepper spray right across the street here on Guadalupe and 22nd Street. Our volunteers that were here were amazing. They went outside and waved students into safety. They did their best to treat the students' injuries and to get them into new clothes. Rowena is a hero. Anna is a hero. I need y'all to know they were the people that were here on call when that crisis happened. I was out. But I was on the phone getting medics here and talking folks through where our stash of t-shirts are. So you'll see lots of students in our UBC t-shirts that Casey has on right now. When I got back here, as soon as I could after that, I found one of our UBC students who had not been volunteering but had heard about what was happening and just came. He said, "I think I need to be at the church." I found him in the entryway mopping up milk and water and just taking care of whatever there was to do. I found a UT faculty member who's also a UBC member standing at the door, monitoring it, letting people in and out, welcoming them. I think what I witnessed is similar to what many of you have seen in the civil rights movement, in the protests, the anti-war protests during Vietnam, and in other crucial moments in our history. And this place was a refuge in crisis because of you, and because of your history, and because of your faith in me, and in so many others that have come in to help. So thank you. Since Monday, this place has become a space of healing, of post-trauma care, of decompression, and of learning. Students called on the community on Monday for support through water and snack donations. And I want you to know that on Monday morning, we started the day with a few boxes of snacks that some of you had brought on Sunday. We brought our loaves and fishes. And by the end of the day, there were 2 tables piled high with Doritos and applesauce and granola bars, and more stuffed under the tables, multiplied. We started with 2 cases of water in our fridge, and by the end of the day, there were at least 1,900 bottles of water stored in our fellowship hall. More came in the next day. No matter how much we use throughout the week, it doesn't go down, it just keeps growing. It's living water, y'all. Last Tuesday, I received a message on my office answering machine from a woman who said, "Hey, I've got some experience doing disaster relief cooking after tornadoes out of church kitchens. Could I get a team together and cook a meal for the students tomorrow?" Sure, of course. We always want to feed people. By the end of the next day, she had a team of about 25 volunteers coming in and out, including 2 chefs, actual chefs, one of whom is interested in cooking for God's Family Dinner, but that's another story, who were serving hot, nutritious meals to students who were looking for a safe space. They've been doing that every night since Wednesday. These students had been living on Doritos and applesauce and some pizzas for the several days before. The social justice team quickly approved funds to purchase ingredients for that first meal. But since then, community members have been providing them. We've received donations that are earmarked for feeding people, and lots of folks have just made grocery runs on their own. Last night, I peeked in the kitchen to see a volunteer prepping food while dancing to techno music in our UBC kitchen, and I don't know why, that just felt so holy. Might be the first time. On Thursday, we had a student reach out to me and ask if he could organize a media training and host it in our fellowship hall for all the folks who had been arrested. It was over 100 at this point. A media training because they were being swarmed and reached out to by so many different media outlets to talk about their experience. And these are kids. They're barely adults. They don't know, most of them really don't weren't prepared to be arrested in the first place. So this student, who's a Jewish graduate student who was also arrested on Monday as one of the leaders of the protest, arranged for an alum from the University of Texas who is a professional media relations person to come and offer a basic media training here. We had about 40 to 50 students who learned things like how to balance being brave and safe, how to speak from their own experience, how to be clear and brief and stick to the main thing. They practiced telling their stories with each other and found community together. These are the people that are being portrayed as, scary hooligans on the news are kids for the most part, are so precious, are filled with gratitude and just so much goodness that I got to witness in this space. On Friday, we held several digital safety trainings. Again, I didn't hold any of these, but I said, sure, you can do that. For folks who'd been arrested or folks who were planning on continuing to organize. And Friday night, there was another large training on Organizing 101. And I heard from Rowena that at the end of the training, the fellowship hall was filled with a beautiful chorus of "We Shall Not Be Moved." That's also the day that we got put in touch with one of our state representatives, who is one of the good ones, there are some good ones, who is a lawyer and has been so helpful and is our church emergency legal contact, and talked me through, all kinds of questions that I had about this space and what to do in, any kind of worst case scenarios. On Saturday, Carrie and Lisa were up there Saturday morning, the daring deacons, the Church Ladies for Justice, welcoming students. And I just loved seeing them being the face of our congregation for so many students who have never come in and who probably never would have. We also hosted a first aid and tear gas first aid training last night, led by a Jewish veteran medic who volunteered to come in to prepare people just in case. We learned a lot on Monday from having to react quickly, but we have a whole table full of medical supplies that have been donated down in the fellowship hall now, and we hope that we are better prepared to be a place of healing physically as well as spiritually for our friends at the University of Texas. There's so much more that I could say. All through this time, apart from the two big events, the first Wednesday and then last Monday when there were mass arrests, the students have kept going out to the lawn and doing what they intended to do all along, which is host poetry readings and do screen printing workshops and have the imam come give a sermon and host a Shabbat circle with Jewish Voice for Peace. And there's so much beauty happening out there on the lawn that you are not seeing because it is boring for the media. They're showing the times of chaos and the times that law enforcement show up, but there has been consistent presence, consistent workshops, consistent learning opportunities, and creative opportunities happening on the lawn. They are not disruptive at all, but I hope that you'll walk over there sometime this week, go to a workshop, see what's happening over there, and see for yourself. It's really been beautiful. Beyond just a rescue and a crisis, this has become a place of healing after trauma and a place where kids are learning how to organize, where I'm learning a lot too, and you're all invited to come to all those workshops as well. Next week there's going to be a nonviolent direct action training, which I think is just incredible. That's the kind of thing that we think, oh, we should be a host for something like this. And the fact that this kind of community has sprung up and that our space has been a home to this kind of work is just really exciting to me and beautiful. We're working on creating a healing space later in the week as well with we've already got volunteers coming and volunteering to be a part that are wanting to do chair massage, and counselors and psychologists that want to come be available, herbalists, potentially tea service, and faith leaders, of course. There's so much potential to be a place of rest and healing even beyond this moment. Over the past week and a half, hundreds of students and community volunteers have been in and out of this space. You guys said you wanted students, right? You wanted to reach out to students, and here they are. And we're reaching out, and we're providing good news of a safe space. One young woman told me last night, this is healing a lot of my religious trauma. And man, if that isn't getting me going through multiple 8 to 12-hour days all the last couple weeks. There have been pastors and lay leaders from UBC and from at least 11 other churches in town. Almost all of our university area partner churches have sent clergy to come and help staff our respite center, have sent deacon chairs and council chairs to help. We're not in this alone. We may be uniquely positioned to be able to offer the space, but our community is coming in so beautifully. Several of you have led the way with your wisdom and advice, with your donations, and with the many, many hours of volunteer work that several of you have put in to make this space available. And really, the whole thing just feels miraculous. Every day, there's another beautiful moment to celebrate. Don't miss it. I need all your help for one thing, but also, you don't want to miss it. I'll talk more about this in sharing community, but I hope that you'll come and see. Come and spend some time up here, even if it's just an hour or two this week. It would be really, I think it's important because I feel like this is a moment that has the potential of setting a new direction for our outreach to students and for the ways that we can offer support to our community. Whether or not they ever come into this sanctuary, that fellowship hall is buzzing. And this is a great opportunity for us to rethink the way that we do ministry in our neighborhood. And I hope you'll come down and see for yourself so that we can continue talking about this. All right, back to the text. An angel of God told Philip to go to Gaza. He finds someone reading Isaiah. This beautiful interfaith encounter happens. He's reading about the suffering servant, one led to the slaughter, one denied justice, one whose life was taken away. And Philip connects the story to the story of Jesus, a Palestinian Jew living under occupation. Jesus, who was brutalized and murdered by state powers, but who was vindicated by God, who had a community spring up all around him in the days following that I can't help but think looks a lot like the community springing up around here. It speaks to the man so much that he's baptized on the spot. Because the story of Jesus is not about getting saved from hell or getting butts in pews or believing correct doctrine or about praying a magic prayer. Y'all know that. The story of Jesus is about identifying with those who are suffering, oppressed, marginalized, forgotten. It's about seeing the divine when others look away. It's about community springing up in unexpected places. It's about life rising out of places that were left for dead. This is what these students and community members are about, y'all, whether they connected to the story of Jesus or not. I can testify. This is what is happening in this space. And friends, the story of Jesus is so alive here. It is the most beautiful depiction of the story that I've ever seen, and I'm so grateful for your support in creating this space. Church, please help us continue. This is a place that is needed and that there's so much gratitude for, and I want to pass along the gratitude of so many students every time anyone leaves, They say, thank you so much. This is the coolest church ever. Thank you so much. I didn't know churches like this existed. Thank you so much. I didn't know where else I would have gone when I was pepper sprayed. This is a holy movement of the Spirit happening here. Thanks be to God. Don't miss it. Amen.